Good day, welcome to Anatomy Lab with me, Putri Halleyana. We're in the Anatomy Lab of Faculty of Medicine in Universitas Pajajaran. So, do you know what anatomy is? Anatomy is the study that deals with the structure of human body. To further study and explore these structures, students need to be interacting with various models of studying. We have the digital media, and then we have also provided them the models, the dry models. It's the simulation of the real organs. It's usually made of plastic and etc. Last but not least, our highlight is, of course, the real organs. It was retrieved from the deceased. We call them cadavers. Sometimes we use a whole cadaver, and other times we use only the organ itself, depending on what we're trying to explain in that particular area. Okay, now we will see the first part, which is the dry lab. We'll see here, this is our dry lab, where we have models and digital interaction. Shall we? Here we are in the dry labs. In these labs, we have the digital media. I will go here after this. And we also have the lecture hall. And as I said before, we have the dry models. If you're curious of what the dry models are, here is the example of the dry model of a heart. Of course, it's not the real size. It's exaggerated for learning purposes. And then here, we have the brain. And on the back, as you can observe, we have the skeletons. It's the example of actual skeleton. It means the axis of your body, excluding the limbs. We have two here. And one of the most popular questions is it real? For the models, it's not, of course. It's from plastic. While the skeletons and the skulls here, they are real. They are retrieved from dead bodies. One would be curious about the skull. It's one of the most popular property in anatomy labs everywhere. If you search on Google, you will almost always find it. So here is the skull. In skull, we usually divide them into two parts. First is the neurocranium. It's the part where you house the brain, just like now. And then we have the facial cranium, facial or face. It's the bones that make up your face. If we want to see closer here, you have the frontal bone that makes up your forehead. And then on the top of your head, there are a pair of parietal bones. And then further to the sides, we have the temporal bones here. On the back, let's see from this one. This one is the occipital bone. And then the one that you rarely hear is probably the skull base. It's called the sphenoid bone. While on the face, is it similar? No, I hope not. But the inside is probably the same. What's interesting here is the nasal bone. Nasal bone, as we see, it's not really, it's empty, right? This part, because this part made up almost exclusively of cartilage. The bony part, the real bone part, is only this part. It's small, it's very small. And then other than nasal bones, we have a pair of maxilla, or the upper jaw. And then we have one mandibula, or the lower jaw. You can also observe here the teeth and its roots. Again, these are real. We will now move on to demonstrate the digital interactive media. Let's see. In here, we can observe the thorax. So thorax is your chest, or anatomically speaking, we usually say thorax. We can manipulate this and observe more structures by moving around. We can even make them larger, smaller, and if we want to observe more, what's more, we can hide the structures, make it disappear. Okay, this is the muscles. I will make it disappear. This is the ribs here, the white ones, or coste, as in anatomy we speak. And if you can see, this, which I highlight, is the lung, and this one is the heart. Okay, the heart has the pericardium. Let's hide the pericardium first, and then let's hide some of these structures to get a better visualization of the heart. I'm sorry, blood vessels, you're obstructing our view, so I will hide you for now. We will get back to you later. Now you can see a proper heart. There you go. This is the heart wave. And you can see them beating. This is the lungs, which encapsulates both sides of the heart, and this is the heart. If we want to see more clearly on this heart, we can hide first. And then this is the heart. Oh, it's still the parietal layer. I'm sorry. It has a lot of layers. Let's isolate this. Here we can see the beating of the heart, and we can even manipulate how fast it beats. Normal human heart beats around 60 to 100 beats per minute, so it gets faster. When you run or you're being chased by something, your heart beats faster. Isn't it interesting? Hopefully so. Other than this, we also have the virtual dissection. Here, you can observe a pretend cadaver. So the previous ones was digitally made. Well, this one is taken from cadaver. It operates similarly. We can, and select the organ, and then we can see the slices of these organs depending on where it is. After I've shown you our facility of the dry lab and the other things, now we are in the wet lab where we store the wet preparations, of course. So what is wet preparations? Wet preparations are the organs preserved in formalin solutions. It is stored in these containers, as you can observe. We have labels here: brain, larynx, pharynx, your throat, and then we have more brains, female reproductive system. This one doesn't have a label, but I believe it contains the head. And then over here also head, thorax, hand, and then liver. And on the other side of the rack, we also have several fetus preparations. It's the aborted or stillbirth fetus, also preserved in formalin solutions. They're probably a little bit shocking to see, so we'll just see them a little bit. Now, before we see the wet preparation of the heart, I want to revisit the dry model a little bit more. It's not just a replication of the heart, it's enlarged, and we can open them, like the chambers of the heart. If you often see the schematic diagram on your textbook, it's usually square, right? Right atrium, left ventricle, left ventricle. But here, you can observe that they're not actually square. They're more oblique, and the ventricles are much larger than the atrium. Here, we have the atrium, and we have the valves as well. And if you see the major vessels here, this is the aorta. It's very large compared to these artery. And then these are the pulmonary trunk. And then over here, we have other smaller arteries and veins. These blue ones usually depicted poorly oxygenated vessels, and then the red ones are the richly oxygenated vessels. Usually they are arteries, but For exclusion here, this one is a pulmonary artery, but it's blue because it is poorly oxygenated. Now, we shall see the wet preparation of the heart over there. We are here at the dissection table, although we're not going to dissect anything today. But I want to point on that for these observation on the wet preparations, it is a must. First, you must wear a lab coat because they are toxic substances. Second, you need to wear mask. Well, of course, it's a pandemic as well, but even if it's not in the pandemic, if you want to observe wet preparation, you have to wear mask because it's very stingy on your nose and on your eyes. It's often that our students cry here, not because of the difficulty of the subject, but because of the substance it got to their eyes. Ideally, you should wear goggles as well, but I'm already wearing glasses anyway, so I'm not going to wear one. And then, last but not least, of course, we're going to wear gloves. You're not supposed to touch these heavily submerged organs in formalin solution with your bare hands. You should always wear gloves. And in the addition of the gloves, we usually use tools as well to see more. Let's see here. These are the heart. Let me put this aside first. The one you just see before, okay? Here is the wet preparation of the heart. Remember that red aorta I was talking about? Where it's not red, is it? Because no, the red and the blue ones are only added colors for easiness. But in actual heart, they're not really distinctive, right? This is the pulmonary trunk or pulmonary artery, the one that colored blue in the model. And this is the aorta, the one with colored red. And similar to what we open in the dry structure, here is the right ventricle. This is the wall of the right ventricle. As we see in the dry structure, the inside or the walls are not smooth. It's ridged with a lot of fibers of the muscles. And this is the back side of the heart. It resides, it's about fist size in reality. You see the dry structure was very much bigger. So it's about right here in your chest. And we have several others which has slightly different colors because of they were aging differently as well. And then this one, oh, I can already sense the stinging in my eyes. It's very, oh, it's hard if you're not wearing mask and gloves. Okay, this is the valves of the heart. That one, it's very thin. There you go. This is the cusp. This is the wall. It's not very much like what you've seen in the picture, is it? Okay, and we're moving on to this part. This is the insides, or your viscera, as we call it in anatomy. It's basically your inner organs. We take them all together. Here we can observe the lung. And then this is the heart. It's already opened. This one, the biggest one, is the liver. And then this one, it moved a little bit to the front, but it's actually on the back side over there. This is the kidney. Well, if, again, you see the books, your textbook, they're full of colors. But here, they're not very colorful. Of course, because this is already preserved in formalin and we have this, like, I don't know. It's been here since before I was a student, so it's been very old. But in reality, if you do a surgical dissection on a living person, it has more color, more reddish usually, more variety than this. Okay, I think that's all for our wet preparation. After this, last but not least, I will show you where we keep the cadaver. Unfortunately, I cannot show you the real cadaver because, well, it's a little unethical as well, and it's not for content, let's say. It's for studying experience. So, but we can see our fridge, shall we? Here, I'm showing you our storage facility to keep store of the cadavers. The human body, once deceased, will go through decomposition, but this process, like submerging in formalin solution or keeping them stored in cold refrigerator, will slow down that process into very slow pace. We have cadaver that's been here more than 15 years. Like I said, since before I was a student, I already teach here for 10 years, so it means very long time. So let's just open this. This is what I call the fridge because it's very cold. When I open the door, it's immediately cold. The cold air coming from here. And if you can observe, it's wrapped in plastics, so it's not going to be easily broken. They need to be in a good shape. Since our faculty also houses veterinary study, we sometimes have cadavers of animals as well, but we don't store them together with the human cadavers. They're stored in different places. Okay, now we're going back to the dry lab. This is the end of our little laboratory tour. I hope it gives you insight to our facility, to what probably waits when you go to medical schools. It's not just here. Most medical schools have similar facility, and veterinary, of course. Any one of you wants to be a doctor? Of course, we welcome you very much. We still need lots of doctors. And I hope what I've shown doesn't encourage anyone who wants to get here. Of course, you won't spend all your time here. It's just a little part of studying to becoming a doctor. We have so many other laboratory and activities as well. So it's not always here. Thank you very much for your attention. Goodbye.